Hey, I'm Montel here, and welcome to this edition of Free Thinking with Montel. My guest today has a master's degree in public health and founded the Food Intolerance Association back in 2023. She's the author of the best-selling book, It's in the Food. Her mission is to bring awareness and education to individuals and families affected by food intolerance to assist in improving overall quality of life and promote further research. Terry Daniels, thank you so much for being a member or joining me on Free Thinking with Montel today.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Absolutely. Sure thing. Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's go back and let's hear a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
I am born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay.
Attended college at Tulane University, where I was a full-time student my entire 10 years there. So I took my first position in the School of Public Health and completed 3 degrees while I was there, which included my master's in public health. I left New Orleans and went to Texas for 12 years and worked in 2 more schools of public health, Baylor College of Medicine and the University of Texas Health Science Center, as well as relocating here to Washington, D.C. 6 years ago. And
throughout that entire time of your growing up, going to school, getting your degrees, you recognize that you had some very health issues and you couldn't explain them. Is that right?
That's correct. I was suffering from headaches for a long time, specifically remembering in my teenage years. And then while I was in college, after I graduated high school, I always worked full time and went to school full time. So when I complained of a headache, people just said it was because you were doing too much, right? And that turned out to not be the case. Through my 20s, and by the time I was in my 30s, my headaches were severe migraines. And by then, that's when I started demanding to know what I was doing. I knew I was doing something. I kind of figured it was food related, but I just couldn't pinpoint it. And I continued to go to the doctor, insisting that they help me figure this out. They ran every test before a food allergy test, and it turned out to be fish and chocolate.
And it was like a light bulb went off when the doctor said, let's try to figure out what you might be allergic to, right?
Yeah. They run all kinds of tests before then, which had nothing to do with finding out what I was allergic to. But, once I did, I cold turkey fish that day and chocolate. Chocolate has been a little bit of a challenge, but I cold turkey fish that day, and I've never had a headache or a migraine since.
Well, how did you learn about food intolerance, and how did it really impact you? I mean, you had headaches, you had other issues going on. Explain some of them.
So I still had other health issues. And because I've worked in the schools of public health, and my background, I actually was studying my own self for these past 16 years since I had my first allergy test. And I happened upon on my own a food intolerance test. I'd never been introduced to that word by any doctor, which is why you're seeing me today. I realize how many other people are suffering with conditions and ailments and don't know the tie to food.
And yeah, you just use the term that a lot of people probably do not recognize because they may think it's synonymous with allergies, but it's not. There's food intolerance and there's also food allergies. Why don't you explain the difference between the two?
That's right. A food intolerance does not affect your immune system and is a reaction to a food or a food component. A food allergy affects your immune system and is a reaction to certain proteins in food and can lead to anaphylaxis. For example, people who are allergic to nuts could actually die from, if from consuming nuts. But food intolerances are more chronic, like headaches, like gut issues, like indigestion, things that will just last throughout your life. I personally feel, based on my knowledge from going from headaches to migraines, that this is how we get to some of our more severe conditions where I can't Google that information and find it, right? How we get from no cancer to cancer, how we get from stage 1 cancer to stage 4 cancer. We're doing something that I believe most people don't even know they're doing. We're consuming foods, or we're putting products on our bodies that our body doesn't want it to have. Some people have warnings and they just don't actually understand how to tie it in together. So
Or they
that's
don't
what.
listen to them, or they just don't listen.
And then there's that for my adults. And so I am looking to target children and make it a standard procedure for all children to be given a food intolerance test, because it only requires hair. And then a food allergy test once they're old enough to take that test, because it does involve a blood sample, and it's usually those pricks in the back, and so they don't give those tests immediately to children. But this needs to be standard procedure so that everyone is aware as early as possible what foods affect their body specifically. No one can guess and no one can tell you.
And let's go back to the difference between intolerance and allergies. Allergies are something that are lifelong. Intolerances can be something that can come and go, correct?
No.
No.
Once your body is intolerant, when your body tells you it doesn't want something, it doesn't change its mind.
Well,
So,
it's very, I mean, it's very interesting when you say that because, I don't know. I'm going to go back about 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I literally I had ordered some food out. It came to the house, and it happened to be shrimp dish that I will tell you I have never been as sick in my life. I've been sick before from food poisoning, but I got to tell you, that was the worst experience I ever had. I was so bad I almost went directly to the hospital because
mhm.
I ate the dish at like 6 o'clock in the evening. At 2:30 in the morning, I woke up exploding from in every direction, and that explosion didn't stop for a good 24 hours. And I mean, like, so the next day, during the day, I got so afraid. I called my doctor and I said, something's going on here. I don't know what it is. I ate this dish, and it didn't register to me that it was the shrimp because I've eaten shrimp my whole life. So, he brought me in. I sat down and talked with him for a little bit. I explained to him what I had. He said, well, you might be developing an allergy to shrimp, so you better be careful. And I was like, okay, for sure. And I got some, pharmaceutical grade probiotics, and that seemed to wash this through my system. And I will tell you, this is going to sound really stupid, but 4 days later, I happened to be at another event, and without even processing it, I grabbed some more shrimp, ate it, and within 3 hours, I went sick as a dog again. So I thought, okay, clearly I'm developing an allergy, possibly, or an intolerance to shrimp. And I cleared it out of my system for a good 30 days. Now I eat shrimp, no problem. I'm eating it again, no problem. And I wasn't like, I just wanted to, after about 30 days, I said, let me just see if it's shrimp or was it the particular shrimp that I ate. And now that I look back at it, I'm pretty positive it was the particular shrimp that I ate. There was something wrong with that restaurant food that was delivered. And 3 days later, I was at a big event where there was shrimp out on a table, covered with ice. And I'm positive that that's probably where my body said, ain't happening. And it might be something still in shrimp that will still affect me adversely. But now it's been 60 days and I've not seen that. And now I don't eat it as often as I used to. However, I've not had that effect at all. And, there have been some things along the way. I can't eat raw oysters. I ate them, 40 years ago at an event.
Mhm.
And I must have, it was one of those where I even recognized when I ate it, I went, oh, something was wrong with that. About 20 minutes later, I was throwing up, and I was worse for this recent reaction than I was back then. But I stayed away from oysters for 40 years. And
Mhm.
then I was at an event and didn't even know in a dish that was served, there was an appetizer. They had a fried um, sauced kind of an oyster. And I ate that. I was going, is this a clam and oyster? It's an oyster. And I was like, oh my God, I hope I don't get sick. And I didn't get sick. But I'm still not going back to them because I know that
Yeah.
my body didn't like that at all, and I'm not going to ever. And just the thought of an oyster almost wants to make my stomach upset. Different than shrimp, where I can think about shrimp and I don't feel nauseous. It was just I'm pretty positive it was that particular restaurant that sent food because it was really weird. About a week and a half later, my wife ate some fish from that restaurant, and she had a really adverse reaction. I was like, we will never order any food from that place ever again.
Something else is going on.
Something's going
May
on.
may I mention, because most people kind of target the main food item and not the ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there could be some item that the shrimp is prepared in, i.e., spices or oils or something else that could have contributed or could be more the culprit to your intolerance. It could be the fish, but one of the examples I give people is, you could eat a cheeseburger combo with fries and drink, and there's like 50 ingredients
Correct.
in that, right? And people will automatically target the beef, right? And I go, well, how did you just pick on the beef? You had spices, you had different oils, you had, you
Could
know,
have been the
and,
mayo, what
and
they mix the
each
mayo
burger,
with.
yeah, and the different cheeses. And so the thing about my mission here is people are not aware of the ingredients. They don't really look at all of the ingredients. And I've had to. And my first food intolerance test gave me a list of about 20 foods. 10 of them I didn't eat. Good. Scratch those off. Good. But I actually don't eat most of the foods, but I've now come down to spices that are severely aggravating me, like which includes fruits and vegetables. Okay.
Correct.
So I got celery, I have paprika, black pepper, red pepper, and cucumbers that are severely aggravating me. And I cannot put it in my food, but I went on a fast and was drinking chicken broth and never realized that there was celery in the chicken broth,
Yep.
right? So what I'm trying to get people to relearn that we've been taught is that if you eat healthy, if you eat fruits and vegetables, you'll just be healthy. And that's just not true.
Because some
And so
people are allergic to different types of fruits and vegetables.
that's right, which includes a fruit or a vegetable. And so for you, it could be the shrimp. Um, like it could be an ingredient. It could be something that that restaurant is using that's different than some of the other shrimp that you have. I don't know, you know, but the only way you can identify what your intolerances are is by a sensitive food intolerance or sensitivity test, as well as a food allergy test, because nobody can guess it for you. Our bodies are just so complicated.
And then once you have the test, what's the process of identifying the food that you cannot tolerate? Now, I know the test is going to say, well, here's a list of 6 or 7, and you're going to go, well, some people will go, well, I like that. I've been eating that. And I haven't had any problems with that, I don't think. But what they should do is probably, like you said, you went on a fast, but without having to tell people to fast, what you could say is that you really want to just kind of clear the
That's
slate completely. And then you want to
yeah.
start with something very, very bland, let's say like rice or, a boiled potato or something that is a bland food, and then start adding other things to it. Is that how you go about it?
No,
No. Okay.
not at all.
All right.
So The food intolerance test actually gives you more of a comprehensive breakdown of your body than a food allergy test. A food intolerance test actually tells you things about your vitamins and minerals your body is deficient in, your gut health, your digestive health. It tells you about heavy metals and toxins that are affecting your body, as well as a long list of foods and drinks, which includes alcohol, um, cleaning products, environmental products. And so it gives you a report in a very detailed format. It gives you your food items in a red light, yellow light, green light format. And I tell people your reds, you need to, break up with those foods. You will not be able to tell what those foods are doing to your body unless you remove it and then reintroduce it one at a time. Now, I suggest if something is a red affecting your body, why would you put it back in your body? Why would you continue to consume that food? I highly suggest the same with the yellows. And yes, the foods we eat are foods we like and love, but you just have to relearn some things. And for me, I ate chocolate everything. All of my desserts were chocolate. And after I had my food intolerance test, I discovered so many foods that I'd never eaten that were actually really good. Like, oh my God, I didn't know spinach was this good. I didn't eat spinach before. And so you just relearn things. And you have to be more open-minded. But that's also one of the challenges with introducing this topic to adults, because we have a more formed opinion about what we know, what we've been told, and what we think. And some of those things aren't necessarily correct. And so, again, you could only know by taking these tests and by working to eliminate those foods. So, part of my organization is to, as a health consultant, to help people to navigate the results of the report, to help people figure out how to mentally move away from things that affect our bodies. I know people with cancer that are still eating foods that they know they shouldn't eat. I've known people with cancer that was still smoking with an oxygen machine, right? So, but if we target children and we make them more aware early on, they're more pliable, and they will affect the rest of the household. They will educate everybody else about what they shouldn't have, not only, but they will also influence everybody else around them, and they'll know I can't have this specific fruit, this specific vegetable, this specific cheese, right? Um, and so, that's just a better way, a more holistic way to target our health.
And let's go back to what you were saying earlier. You said you were talking about cleaning products and even makeup and other potential irritants in our daily lives. How do you, first off, some of those external irritants seem to me as if they would only affect your skin or your, but or would affect you by giving you headaches. But some of these external products can also influence how you feel as if you've eaten something, correct?
Correct. So, cleaning products affect us in different ways. I've had some sensitivity around ammonia and bleach. I thought, nothing of it, but when I would use them when I was young, I'd have to go outside to breathe. I mean, it would literally take my breath away. Um, but for me, the makeup was attached to the heavy metals and toxins that I received from the report. I had always had itching in my face and I couldn't figure it out. I went through all of the products and all the foods in my kitchen, and didn't find these toxins. And finally, I went through my entire bathroom, and for me, this is just me. My body has sensitivity to titanium and tantalum and cobalt. Well, tantalum is in our cell phone, our electronic products, very hard to get away from. But the titanium was actually in all of my makeup and my hair gels. So my foundation, my eyeliner, my eyeshadow, all of it. And so I was really in shock. And so these are the things that led up to the book. It's like, who knows this?
Right.
Nobody is providing this type of information. And so it looks like I'm going to have to do it.
Gotcha. Now, what are some of the most common food products that people can be intolerant of?
To be quite honest with you, there's no specific food items. It's only specific to your body. Your body has its own makeup. There are people who have multiple ailments. There are healthy people that have headaches, right? And so if you don't take a test to find out the foods that are specific to your body, no one else can tell you. There is no specific food. Foods that are deemed healthy could not be healthy for you. You don't digest them well. And so that is one of the myths that, there are specific foods that work for everyone, which is not true. I can't consume ginger, and ginger is in all the health food products, right? But it doesn't work for me.
And ginger works for me. Or, well,
Yeah,
I try.
yeah.
Yeah, but now, what about some of the links between food intolerance and, let's say, different varied autoimmune diseases?
So, food intolerance and autoimmune diseases are two separate conditions, but they're closely related. If you can identify on top of your autoimmune condition what food items or products that are negatively affecting your condition, it could really exacerbate your condition, right? So, your psoriasis, no one can tell you what's causing your psoriasis. You'd have to find out what your trigger foods are or your trigger products are, and you have to remove them and then observe your condition. I was taking a couple of medications for a surgery, was feeling awful, removed those medications, and also, I have to relook at my diet all the time to make sure that I haven't introduced something back into my diet, i.e., an ingredient in a food product, right?
Do you notice?
So,
Do you tell the difference, like in a day, in 12 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours? What?
not necessarily that quickly, but if, again, for me with headaches, it was immediate. Um, but some conditions like skin conditions or eczema, you're going to have to remove those items from your diet for a period of time and then observe how your skin starts to recover from that,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I had a medical issue happen a couple of years back, 5 years ago, and because of the severity of the condition, I was placed on some medications, and I left the hospital, and I was on these medications for one of them in particular. I was on it for almost a year, but let me back up. Because of my MS, I have always had kind of like a heat aversion. And my heat aversion is, temperature goes above 85, 86 degrees, it's like kryptonite. It can like really shut me down. And so after I had this other emergency, I started noticing that the severity of that heat intolerance was skyrocketing. As a matter of fact, I found myself in a couple of times, and I literally passed out in a couple of restaurants because I was sitting, 4 tables away from a fireplace in a restaurant. And, I don't have a thermostat anymore in my body. My body doesn't know when it's going to be. I don't know I'm overheated until I'm already overheated. I don't know I'm cold until I'm too cold. So there are times when I have to really pay attention if I go outside. And of course, I live in an extremely hot place, Miami. But if I walk outside, I have to really gauge myself within the first 10 steps and think and stop and think and really try to feel out what's going on. Am I too hot or am I okay? Because if I take that 20th step, I could end up on the pavement. And so I got to make sure that it's not too hot for me to walk around.
Mhm.
And then, I went to then that first year after that other emergency. I went to the hospital one night because I had passed out. I hit the floor, literally split open my forehead. I ended up requiring like 60 stitches up here to close it back up, and they were micro stitches and outer stitches, so you can't even tell, can't even see the scar. And while I was in there with the doctor was going, well, let's look at your medication again. I pulled up my medication, showed it to me, and says, this is really weird, but I've never seen a person on the combination of these two that you're on. And I said, well, which one is the one that could cause the problem? He said, well, it may be this one. I don't think you should be taking that one. I said, okay. So I got rid of that. Next day, that overly heat sensitive went away. I mean, within like 5 hours, went away. And I started noticing I could stand up because what was doing was, I won't throw out what the name of the drug was, but what it was doing was when I stood up or I sat down, it literally like most people don't understand that your seated blood pressure is different than your prone blood pressure, which is different than your standing blood pressure.
Mhm.
And what was happening was this particular drug was affecting my body's ability to regulate the blood pressure from the prone position to a standing position or a seated position. So if I stood up quickly, my blood pressure would drop. Not
Mhm.
knowing that, that's what was causing me to fall over and hit the pavement. So as soon as I got rid of that drug, went away. So, but though I am still extremely heat sensitive, but not like I was prior to that event and prior to taking that medication. So
Mhm.
people, there's also, I mean, not only do food and, herbs and those kinds of things, vitamins and those things can affect us all differently. But, doctors, unless they really, really, really take the time to evaluate each individual, I would say that before they put people on multiple medications, they should all put them on some sort of a tolerance test.
So that's why I exist here now. I am advocating for uh, the two tests to be standard procedure because we can avert a whole lot of conditions if we know what's triggering our bodies, right? Um, we can not be on a lot of medications if we would just listen to our bodies and not only just listen, but take the action. I know people that are on multiple medications, but they also know that they have poor eating habits, right? And so, if you want to improve your health, then it's just as simple, which is not that very simple. It's as simple as taking a look at a report, these two reports side by side, and literally working on removing those food items. Now, let me say, not so simple, because I have personally traced my hot flashes to a food item, and those two food items just mean my body, because it could be other food items for other people. But what I'm trying to make people understand is I've traced my hot flashes directly to food. And those two foods for me are red pepper and black pepper. I'm going to have a very miserable night if I have red pepper and black pepper. And it's in my salad dressing. So eating healthy didn't, affect that in any way. It's in my kosher pickles in the fridge. It's in all of our meats and our spices, and you know, it's all over the place. So I am struggling right now with removing these items I can do it for days, I can do it for a week or two, but somewhere I'm going to get these items again. And so, what I am trying to implore adults to do, because I think, again, that this will be an easier process for children, is we really, really have to actively work on removing the negative food items from our diet. And then we very highly may not need some of the medications that we're on that is affecting something related to gut. I was giving him a medication for my migraines, and it worked. But the next day, I ate fish at lunch again, so I was in a hamster wheel. And
Right.
so, I often wonder, because it's been 16 years, what ailment would have been introduced into my body 16 years later if I was still eating fish? Would I have gotten an aneurysm? Would I have gotten a brain cancer? What were those severe migraines going to turn into? Because there were mild headaches at one time.
And did you find out? I think you mentioned in your book that you later found out that you weren't allergic to, or there was an aversion to all fish. There were certain types of fish that you
That's right.
weren't allergic to, right? But you went ahead and said, "Screw it, I'm not going to do any of it."
So so I so 16 years ago I found out it was fish. They told me that they couldn't tell me which specific fish during that time, that I would have to eat each fish and figure out which ones worked and not. But for me, the reaction to the fish was so bad, why would I continue to consume that? So it wasn't until I actually ran into the food intolerance test. This test actually breaks down all fish. It breaks down all cheeses, all dairy, all breads, all mushrooms, every category, and it tells you red light, yellow light, green light, which ones we can eat and which ones we can't. But I do have some good fish, but for me, I've psychologically removed those items from my diet, and I just thank God he didn't take all seafood from me. So I'm like, okay, not eating fish anymore. But there are some fish I can eat.
And does this change as you get older? I mean, because I will tell you, I know people who've said, I've eaten XYZ my whole life, and then I had it last week, and it just causes, you know, issues, gut issues. Then so I stopped eating it now, but I ate that for 20 years and never had a problem. Does aging impact your food intolerance?
I think aging affects our food intolerance in the case that we don't know what we don't know. Like, my headaches were very mild at one time, and then there were headaches at one time, and then there were severe migraines where I couldn't function once I ate the fish, right? So that means that over time, our body is mildly reacting to this item. And again, some people know, when I eat this spicy food, I'm going to need an antacid, when they didn't always need it, right? So as we age, if
I tell you, I'm starting to catch that
yeah,
now.
yeah,
The last couple of years, I was never a Pepto Bismol or Tums person or any of those antacid people, and I swear to you, in the last 2 years. I mean, last year it was really severe. I've modified some of the things I've eaten to make sure that I stay away from certain foods, because there's certain things that are triggers, like ultra spicy food. First off, I grew up eating spicy food. That's all I ate, was the spicier the better, the hotter the better. I would go
same.
to a chicken wing place and order the hottest chicken wings that they have on the menu, and I could tolerate it. It burned a little bit, but I enjoyed it. Now I cannot, I can eat spice. However, I'll give you, for example, I was in the airport in Dallas Airport 2 days ago, and I ordered a rice and chicken soup that they had on the menu, and the waitress said, "I just want to warn you that it's a little hot." I said, "What do you mean, spicy hot?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Go ahead. I like it. That's okay. Bring it on." Let me tell you, that woman put this bowl down in front of me. I took one bite. I thought I was going to die. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" It burned everything from my throat to my stomach. And then I said, "No, I'm done." I pushed the plate away. I went ahead and got something else because it was like, why would I put myself through that? I'm not going to do it.
That's right.
You know,
That's
but again, 10 years ago, I probably could have eaten it and
yeah.
would not have even felt the same way. And
You know
right
why?
now, there are certain times like, before eh, I got to really pay attention to what, well, first off, I intermittent fast. So I
Mhm.
try to eat my last meal no later than 6 p.m. I eat my
Mhm.
last meal no later than 6 p.m. I don't eat anything until 10 to 12 o'clock the next day. I always put anywhere from 12 to 14 hours in between putting food in my mouth in the evening so I can go to bed, let my body do its thing, digest it, get it moving. That. However, there are times when I've noticed, again, there's something in certain Italian foods. Now, I consider myself a really unbelievable Italian cook. I can cook anything from, lasagna to spaghetti to you name it. However, 10 years ago, I could enjoy that meal without any hesitation. Right now, I got to put a couple times in my mouth before I eat it, and a couple times in my mouth after I eat it, and 2 hours later, a couple times in my mouth again, just to settle it down because there's something in that combination of the tomato with the pepper and with the garlic, that combination together is not, I'm not dealing with that anymore.
I can tell you what the issue is. Your body has been talking to you for a long time and you have not listened, but also you don't know what you don't know. So
Right.
have you in the course of your time battling with your MS, have you been given a food allergy and a food intolerance test?
I haven't, but I also, I went through a whole series of chelations with, heavy metals and things like that. So I never really went down the food allergy or intolerance test. I should do that. Um, but I am, I've worked with some of the top doctors in the country. There was a period of time, a few years back where I went completely vegan for several years. And, that ended up having some issues. I had some issues with that. So then I kind of went back to eating, a little bit of meat. And now as long as I stay, I've read Dr. Walls's book. So I've been involved with what she's been promoting and looking at, but I'm pretty positive after looking at several different iterations of people trying to figure out whether or not it's truly MS or it's something else. I truly do have MS. There's no question I do. I come from a lineage that probably had it. My grandmother probably had it, but it was never diagnosed. She's from that area of the world where it is endemic. And uh, I'm pretty sure that passed on to me. But after having read, part of your book and listen to the information that you've put out, I'm going to probably have a food intolerance test next week.
So let me unpack that for you. I have asked every single cancer patient if they were given a food allergy and a food intolerance test at the beginning of their diagnosis, and 100% of people have told me no.
Right.
I say that because if you do not identify the foods that are going in here or on here onto your skin, everything else is a guessing game. And our medical profession is practices sick care. And so, like when I went and complained of a migraine, they immediately gave me a medication. I personally chose answers, which means that if I had chosen to just take the medication, what type of condition would I be in 2 days, 16 years later?
Mm-hmm.
I don't I don't, the reason that I'm trying to be careful with my
Sure.
words a
No.
little
Okay. I'm with
here.
you.
Um, I am advocating, I wrote the book because I realized there was a gap in research on this topic and knowledge on this topic. If you Google food intolerance, it's going to give you a whole bunch of information around food allergies. And that's where all the research dollars are going because there was never a Food Intolerance Association. The reason I started the Food Intolerance Association was because I realized that fact right there. What I also realized is there are very few people who are aware of food intolerances, and which means that our planet reached 8 billion people around November last year. The numbers say something that I'm right now questioning only because nobody's heard of it. So, you know, the research numbers need to be adjusted based on people who are aware. So I am pretty sure you look great, you are in good health, but what I am also telling people, and you just said it, you became a vegan for a period of time and it didn't necessarily work. And that's because we're not exempt from being intolerant of fruits and vegetables. And so a vegan diet has you eating all these quote unquote healthy food items, and your body is still intolerant of something.
Because
And
we know that even the fruits and vegetables these days are grown in soils that have so many impurities in them. There's so
that's
much going
correct.
on there. Go ahead.
That's correct. And the thing is, we don't know. Like for me, I have pears and cucumbers. I have um celery. Celery is really hurting me right now. And so, being a vegan doesn't exempt your body specifically from not wanting you to consume something. And again, this is the mission and this is the work that I am planning on doing, supporting people affected by food intolerance, spreading awareness, and promoting and encouraging additional research around this topic, because we get to an older age and we wonder where an ailment comes from. But honestly, I try to think about how do we turn the corner from not needing an antacid, right, before you eat a food, to having to pop a couple because this food item, this particular food item, is going to aggravate your gut. Now, it's not necessarily the overall, just say, you eat a burger and you blame it on the beef when it was the cucumbers all along,
The pickle.
or the lettuce or whatever else, that's in that, or some of the oils, there are conflicting oils. There's oil on the burger, then there's a different oil on the fries, and so I am trying to introduce this topic. I am spreading awareness and education. People, there's a huge learning curve here.
Absolutely. Well, in that sense, talk a little bit about it, the connection between food intolerance and exercise. I found that interesting.
Well, it's just simply, if you have a, just for example, lactose intolerant, and you go to eat before you exercise and you consume a dairy product, and then you go to exercise and you're aggravated, like you've upset your gut after you start exercising. So that's really the biggest connection, is tying in the foods that trigger negative responses in your body to exercise.
Got it. And again, you'd be able to do that if you took a food intolerance test. And are
Yes.
most doctors aware of them and capable of doing that for you?
I have made many calls in my area requesting a food intolerance test. I did not find one, but I have met a few people that have had one. Um, I am going to create an environment where people can log into our system and find a test by a doctor. But because a food intolerance test only requires a hair sample, it's kind of considered over the counter because it's not invasive. So there are several testing labs that are available online that you can actually just log in, order a test. They'll send you, a box. You put a hair sample in and you mail it back to them and they do a full analysis. So that's also something that's being done in my association.
Do you have that information up on your association's website?
I do not, because I'm still working on partnerships with the testing labs. So at this time, I am not um, advocating for one test over another. But I have taken a particular labs test several times, and I
Is
can
there, I mean,
provide
if
that
let's
to
say,
you.
let's say my listeners right now wanted to know how to find one for themselves, would they go up on your website? How would they know how to navigate the space?
So the food intolerance test that I personally took several times is by the Advanced Food Intolerance Lab.
Okay.
Um,
So
but
advancedfoodintolerancelab.com.
.com, yes.
Okay. All right.
So that is the one that I have taken. Those test results are extremely comprehensive. But I've also I do consulting on the side to help people navigate the results, understand the results, and understand, how to live past these results. It's not something that you just get the report back, look at it, and sit it down and put it in a drawer. You really actually have to actively work on removing those food items in order to see improvements in your health. But there are doctors that provide the test, but I can't tell you who those doctors are today.
But this is the mission of your association, to bring awareness to the idea and to make people go out and try to figure out this, or at least navigate the space themselves. And you're going to help them navigate, right?
Yes.
And so if people wanted to get a hold of you, where would they go?
They will go to www.foodintoleranceassociation.org.
Okay.
I also wrote a book. It's called It's in the Food, a guide on food intolerance for adults and children. And that book actually provides a lot of information about food intolerance, how to understand the symptoms, and it actually provides a journal in the back of it where multiple family members, a whole household, can actually track their symptoms and put it in all the results from their report right there in the back of the book and manage. So that's where I can be found.
And anything else you'd like to share? This is great information, because I know my listeners are probably like, it's triggering some deep thought about issues that they're having that they've not talked about, that may be associated with a food intolerance. So anything else you want to add?
They can contact me at info@foodintoleranceassociation.org, and we can set up a consultation to talk about their ailments and how we might be able to trace food intolerances to their ailments. So I work with everyone, including children, to help navigate this whole process.
Thank you so much, Terry Daniels, sorry, for being a part of the show today, Free Thinking. I'm sure that my listeners are going to really appreciate this and enjoy it. And you're doing the right thing. Spread the word as loudly as you possibly can.
I am. I am.
Uh, Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Absolutely. Thank all of you for tuning into this edition of Free Thinking with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Free Thinking with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback, so please send us your comments.